Very big confirmed.
Okay.
Well, has been confirmed? He said?
Yeah, because next week we'll
This is like WikiLeaks or something like that. Like
WikiLeaks.
I'm saying like we're trying to get information from different sources and verifying. Anyhow, Maimer. So yeah, we're now going to be discussing a little bit. And last week not last week, in yesterday's case, we discussed the concept. We'll just read the kitzur briefly, but it says that from the continuation of the pasuk of Ki b'shiras li b'elech, it says that a person will reassure himself that if he goes in the way of his heart, he'll have good, and he'll reassure himself and he'll say the man's face that the thirsty should be something should be either added or should be connected to the.
What page are we holding on?
We're holding page 85. The thirsty should be added or connected to the non-thirsty, and we said that that's apparently an explanation for why a person would reassure himself that following his heart would lead him to a good place. So we need to understand both what the explanation is and why ultimately what a person would reassure himself in saying that. And we explained that the thirsty represent the Yidden, that it's referring to the Yidden, and the not thirsty refers to goyim that they're not. It says particularly the Kavim. I don't know if you can die from that goyim that are like that do the Shabbat mitzvahs for their or something like that they're not on that level. Well, whatever it is that it refers to Akum or refers to Eidik Kavim, and we explained the concept of the level of Malchus, that Malchus is the source of all of the worlds and all creations, and it's like it's something that comes off of Atzmos Ein Seif, but it's not exactly separate, but it's not exactly the whole thing. You don't get, it's not like a piece of Atzmos, and that's why it's called Shem. That's why it's called a name. So now we're gonna explain a little bit more about this creation of the world and how it works. So, seeing as the source of the existence of the world is only a ha'ara, it's only a ray of atzmos, and originally this ray was included in its source in atzmos, this is what it says in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. It's a sefer, it's a midrash. It says Rabbi Eliezer got to yeshiva. He was originally he was a Baal Tshuva, or not really a Baal Tshuva, but he was supposed to be working. His father was very rich, and he went to yeshiva. And in yeshiva, he really, really excelled in his studies. And this is a bunch of drashos from him. They had a party. Ephesus, I don't remember exactly. I haven't been at the beginning of Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer in a while, but something along those lines. And in it, towards the beginning, it says that before Hashem created the world, Hashem and his name were alone. The name of Hashem was included by Hashem. The same way that the name isn't a davar neisif on a person. It's not like a person goes to get surgery to get their name appended to them. Like they have a bunch of body modifications nowadays. I remember on Shark Tank, one of the first episodes, they wanted to put a Bluetooth speaker into a person's ear surgically, so that you'd be able to talk or whatever. You wouldn't need to wear any Bluetooths or whatever it is. They told him to get out of there. He was too ahead of his time. Well, the name isn't a thing that you need to add on to a person. The name is simply, it refers to the person, but it's not something added, like we explained yesterday. So Hashem and his name were alone, and the name was included in Hashem. After the world was created, is when the name was separated, and it was able to become like sort of a distinct entity in a sense, to be able to give life to the world. If I want to start making drashas, I could say the Indian of Nivra Ha'ilam is when not because you might say if the world was already created, what's the point of the name of Hashem? The name of Hashem gives chayes to it. You could say maybe that Nivra Ha'ilam is referring to the level of whatever. Okay, I'm already getting too ahead of myself. And I did show up later. We need to finish this ice. But anyhow, that's why this ray is always in a level of ratzah. Ratzah is a level of longing. It wants to keep its source. Because its desire and its yearning is that it wants to be included in its source. And this is the nature of everything that it wants to be included in the source. Like the nature of fire is that fire wants to go up to its source to the foundational level of fire. Just on simple scientific terms, over here the air is much denser than fire. Fire is plasma. Fire wants to equalize density. That's why the flames flicker. In outer space, when they strike a match, the fire stays around the match or whatever it is that it's lit. It's just like a bulb because it's not trying to go up. But fire down here, it wants to equalize density, so it wants to fly up. So somewhere above the earth, I don't know exactly where, but somewhere over there is where the density of plasma equalizes, and fire really, really wants to go there. So we're saying that's the Galgal Ha'esh. There's different heavenly spheres, and every one of the foundational elements of air, water, fire, and earth have their different places. Earth is all the way on the lowest. Water is a little bit less dense than earth when it's super packed and whatnot. Air is on top of that, and fire is around the earth. There's the level where the density is the same as fire. So fire wants to go there. And therefore, without oil and a wick or other things which can hold a fire, it's impossible to hold on to the fire because the fire really wants to go up and it'll escape unless you have something that's keeping it down here. And even when you're holding on to it with oil and a wick, it's constantly going up and coming back down. This is also how it is with the ha'ara, with the ray of Atzmos that gives life to the world, which is only a ha'ara. And because it's only a ha'ara, because it's really part of Atzmos and wants to be included in Atzmos, it's constantly in a level of Ratzi, it's constantly yearning to be connected to Hashem. In your case, it's Tzmeya. That's why it's called thirsty, because it's constantly thirsty to go up above. And as it says, it says in the pasuk that we should so that we should sing your honor and not be silent. And I would imagine it's the Zayar, although I don't know exactly what it is, but comments that the lower light is calling out to the upper light, and it does not it does not rest. This is what it means when it says in the pasuk, going back to Kibushiris to be Elech, Lamans Face Haravas Etzmeya, that the not thirsty should be added to the thirsties. This is what it means when it says Hat Tzmeya. The Rabbi Shah makes a deal. He says it's not Hat Tzmeya, it's Hey Tzmeya. The thirsty Hey. Because the level of Malchus, it's referring to the level of Malchus, which is the last letter Hey of Hashem's name. There's a concept in Kabbalah that the 4-letter name of Hashem corresponds to the 10 spheres. The Yod corresponds to Chachma, the Hey corresponds to Bina. There's reasons given for all of these things, but just briefly to say, the Vav corresponds to Zah, which is Das. Wherever Das is a very complicated thing. There's a whole Meshachim about where Das is and why. But the Vav represents the six midas of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chesed, and Yesod, and the last Hey corresponds to Malchus. So it's saying Hey Tzmeya, the last Hey of Hashem, is thirsty to be included in Atzmos. About this, it says in Midrash Rabbah, that it says that in the day that Hashem created the earth, and so it says Behi Baram, and the Midrash says that split the word Behi Baram into the word Behe Baram, that Hashem created the heaven and earth with the letter Hey. This Hey that's referred to in Midrash over there is thirsty. That it constantly desires and yearns to be included in its source, to return to the nothingness and to go to its source. By the way, the reason why we say that Hashem created nothing from, He created something from nothing. We always say He created Yesh Me'ayin, ex nihilo, they call it in Latin or something like that. And a person might ask, what do you mean that Hashem created something from nothing. Hashem, Atzmos is the only real existence. Hashem is the only real existence. And this world, if anything, doesn't exist. If you're looking at it convert to Atzmos, how can you say that Hashem created something from nothing? Really, he created something from something, from Atzmos, or nothing from something, if you want to say. The reason why is because as far as our perception goes down here, it's nothing. We don't appreciate Atzmos, we don't see Atzmos in that sense. So when we say that there was creation, something from nothing, we're saying the thing that we can't appreciate became something that we can appreciate. So just explain. But the hey, the last day of Hashem's name, with which He created the world, it yearns and it desires to be included once again in its source. It wants to be included again in its name, and it wants to go back to that what we consider to be nothingness, but what it knows is its source in Atzmos. About this it says, is my word not like fire? The same way the nature of fire is to rise up, as we said. So too, the name of Hashem, the level of Hey, the letter Hey that Hashem put into the world, it wants to go up l'mayla. The letter Hey, the upper letter Hey, and when we say, like I'm saying, the letter Hey l'mayla, not to the right. I'm just going to restart that because I got too lost in it. The letter Hey with which Hashem created the world is not chas v'shalom like when a person speaks, that the letter Hey, that the letters that he speaks, anything that he says, the Hey or Vav or Zayin doesn't make a difference. The letters don't have a desire of their own. The letters below are silent, ironically. That while we speak and we say words, and the words technically have letters in them, but the letters themselves are silent. They don't have their own will or wisdom. They are only vessels so that wisdom and will can be enclosed in them. We enclose ourselves, in a sense, in the words that we speak. But the words themselves don't have anything to themselves. But as far as it goes above, chas v'shalom to say so. But when Hashem speaks, the words, the letters, have will and wisdom. Because from the upper dibur, from Hashem's speaking, the source of Chachma was created. The source of Chachma in Gan Eden Elyon. This is what happened when Malchus of Atzilus became Atik of Bria. There's a concept that whenever you have, it's not really relevant to the matter, so I'm not going to do such a deep dive into it, but in general, when you have one world ends like Atzilus ends, the last level of Atzilus, this is going to become very relevant later, hopefully we'll go back to there this year, but the lowest level of the world will become the upper level of the next world. In a sense, when you have a thought process, the last bit of the thought process is what convinces you to actually act on it. But it's not really the point of this matter, of this ice, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. The is of Midrash, and as it says in the Midrash, that the letters of the Aleph base came to testify before Hashem. That the letters all came before Hashem, and they said that they want Hashem to create the world with them. That means that the letters were around, they were doing things, they had personalities, and they had desires, and they had intelligence. That the letters, that Hashem created the letters, and Hashem uses the letters to speak. And with His speech He creates the world. But the letters themselves are not just sitting around doing nothing. The letters themselves are actually creations, but they actually have will and they have desire. They're not just empty vessels to contain will and desire. At the end at the Hakdama, and the introduction of Tikkun HaZayar, at the end of the introduction, it says about the pasuk of Maskilim Yasiru that the intelligent will shine. It's a pasuk in Daniel, and it comments Ilin Inun Asvan the Havaloim Seichel La'ala Kadam Malka Kol Chada Tikkun Echulu. And it says that this refers to the letters that they have intelligence to rise before the king. Every person on his position, on his stand. It explains in the Sefer Kisei Melech that this is why the letters are called maskilim, because they're smart, they have intelligence. לכן שייך לומר שהאיס hey reisa listalik v'lalis l'mayla l'shoshe. And that's why it's possible to say that the letter hey that Hashem created the world with, that He embedded in the world, wants to go up to its source. This is what it says in Zayar. B'shaitu di'iu gay rechimu sagi chulu migay dechiku derechimu al yachvel misbal as edas gamar b'zi'iru sagi as yeah. Okay, the code of the Zayar is going to go to the end, so we're just going to translate it. So it says that it says that at the time that he's feeling love from the pressure of the love, it's not able to handle the causations, and it's and nothing is seen of her. Besides for one small point, and what is it? It's a yud. And it's saying that from the hey becomes a yud, and the yud represents the concept that it's included in the ayin, because the yud is a small point, and it's saying that it's able to diminish itself, it's able to become bottle in the thing which is larger than it, it's able to become part of the nothingness that it so strongly yearns to be a part of. So a very Kabbalistic chapter, if you will, today. Discuss the concept of Hashem's name. We're going to have the Kitzur. Let's just read the Kitzur. Actually, Nivra Elam. Before Hashem created the world, it was Hashem and His name alone. That the source of the life force of the world and the creations were included in its source in Hashem. So when it was revealed in order to give life to the world, it's constantly in a state of yearning, like the nature of fire is to rise up. This is what it means when it says in the Pasuk, that the letters above have will and desire. Any questions?
Would you mind explaining that last quote from the Zohar again?
The ayin?
Yeah, the one about the yud. I don't fully understand.
You're saying the last concept.
Yeah.
So when you have in order to become included in something, you can't be too much of an existence, because otherwise you won't become included in it. You'll only become attached to it or something like that, but you won't become included in it. So when the hay wants to go up, when the hay wants to become a part of the original name, when it wants to become a part of Atzmos, in order for that to happen, it needs to be diminished. It needs to become lesser than what it is. And in a sense, it's fitting, because we down here don't really appreciate Atzmos, so we just look at everything that goes towards Atzmos as getting smaller, because it's going towards Atzmos. But the hay, even besides for that point, in order to become included in Atzmos, it needs to become diminished from what it is. That down here we appreciate it as the hay, but every letter originally starts off what it is at its source. It starts off as a yud, because the yud is just the dot, and when you put the pen on the paper, that's what you're doing. Whenever you start to make any letter, you're starting to make a yud. So the hey, what it's doing in a sense, in order to become included in Atzmos, in order for it to go up and to become included in Atzmos, it needs to be diminished, and that's why it says it becomes a small point. It becomes a yud. It's not to say that it necessarily changes like the vocation or whatever it is, but it's saying it becomes lesser in the sense that it contracts to what it ultimately is, and only then is it able to be is it only possible for it to be included in Atzmos. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Question?
More of a comment. This reminds me of the Rebbe's Sama Lecha Nafshi song.
Oh yeah, because it's thirsty. Yeah.
Also thirsty.
All right.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
That's Hashem next week. Figure out the times.